Hello, hello, hello. This is Kenny Perkins, aka your cancer guy. And again, as I always say, we have another phenomenal guest. Now we travel at this point across the continent. Yes, we are going down to Australia, Brisbane, Australia. And now, if you're American, you may say Brisbane, but it's Brisbane. And as I was educated on, it looks like we're going to be having the Olympics there in 2032. So get familiar with that capital there, or that city. But what I want to tell you is that our next guest, she is a phenomenal human being, and she's taking control of her life. In fact, she gave me some space. She's on her way on vacation now, but she allowed some space for me. So thank you for that, having me, or for giving me that space. But you're going to love her. We're going to find out all about her story. And I hope what we can do is actually empower you from all of the things that she's gone through. So please give me the honor, and let's bring in our next guest, Helen Beeley. Yes. Helen, look at that. That's the round of applause we need for you.
Thank you so much for having me, Kenny.
Oh, it's our pleasure. It's our pleasure. And thank you so much for joining us here at All Talk Oncology. You know, it's such a privilege to have you here on the show, especially from Australia.
Yeah. Down under, yes.
You know, that accent that you had, when I first heard it, I was like, oh my God, I love that accent. I love it. You probably get that a lot.
The funny thing is, we were talking before that, I've traveled overseas. I've been to America a couple of times. And when you come back and you walk into the airport and, they announce over the airport, it just sounds awful to me. It's like, I'm just trying to think of an announcement. Like, everybody go to customs. And I'm like, do we sound like that? That's so awful. Yeah.
It's such a distinct accent, right? For sure. So, we love it. We got to embrace all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Helen, talk to us here, what is Helen doing out there in Australia? What is your career? What's happening?
Okay. So I'm a physiotherapist. I've been working which is like a physical therapist in USA. And I've been doing that for 28 years, over a range of areas. Started out sports, musculoskeletal, occupational health, moved into rehab, and recently have worked in cancer care and palliative care. And my current job, I work in an over 50s clinic, which is absolutely love it. I'll be there for the rest of my career. We're spread over 2 floors. We've got 2 gyms and a 3rd exercise space. We've got a great team of exercise physiologists, physio, psychology, etc. 9 clinic rooms. And so being an over 50s clinic, with that age group, we do get, a lot of people with cancer. Yeah, so that's what I'm currently doing. And then I myself went through cancer. I was diagnosed in 2020, and I knew the importance of exercise during my treatment. And because I had my surgery and the majority of my chemo in lockdown, I needed to go to appointments by myself. I couldn't see my friends because it was lockdown. And I'd never really been on social media before. So I took to Instagram to try to find people. Like, one of the first things I did was, start looking for someone who'd exercised to do their treatment, because I knew it was going to be hard. And back then, there weren't really a lot of people. I could only find a few people. So I decided to start, filming myself exercise and my thoughts as I went through. And it was kind of a shortcut way to let all my family and friends know what was going on, rather than having to, phone all these individual people. It was there to try to promote the idea of exercise, but it also became a bit of an accountability thing as well. So I found that if I went, a week without posting, I'd get messages from people saying, "Where have you been? Your videos are helping me." So that would make me, So the accountability as well. And connection, of course. I was a patient. I was scared. I was vulnerable. So I connected with people from all around the world who were going through the same treatment as me. I found a chemo twin who's from Arkansas, and I've invited her to come out to the Olympics in 2032. But we'd been diagnosed pretty much at the same time, and we'd have our chemos on the same day. But there was other days I'd be sitting in chemo, just chatting away on Instagram to people who were having their chemo, but on the other side of the world. So it was a connection thing as well, because it was, lockdown.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then when I finished my active treatment, I didn't really know what to do with my page. But then I had messages from people saying, "Please keep posting." So then I switched from, because it had basically been an exercise log. It was just, if you scroll back, first post from 2020, it's just basically all my powerlifting, videos that my powerlifting coach took. And then I just had documented exactly what I'd done, what weights, how many reps, how many sets, and how I was feeling. So it's kind of like a video blog. And then when I, finished active treatment, I then kind of switched and then started using my health background to start providing information to cancer patients, because I was actually shocked at how little information people are given about the role of exercise, and also shocked at the misinformation given, even my oncology providers. So it then became, my mission in life now is to promote cancer exercise medicine. So, yeah.
And Helen, let me ask you, how important is it? Because I think this is an area that gets overlooked a lot. How important is exercise in connection with, cancer and trying to, live a healthy life?
Exercise is as important as all your other treatments. It is as important as your chemo, your radiation, your targeted therapy, your surgery, etc. So it's not something that's nice to do. It's a must do. So there's a strong body of evidence showing the benefits of exercise, not only in reducing the side effects of cancer and its treatment, so reducing side effects like anxiety, depression, fatigue, improving quality of life, improving physical function, improving bone density. There's also evidence that it assists with enhancing tumour suppression. So getting more of the medicine into your tumours, and, enhancing, working synergistically with the chemo, your radiation, to further enhance tumour suppression. And then after active treatment, if you're lucky enough not to need lifelong treatment, but after that active treatment, reducing the risk of recurrence. Yeah, and there's so much research going on at the moment. There's research where people are sitting in the chemo suite, pedaling on an exercise bike while the chemo is dripping through their veins. So in some parts of Australia, there's a gym co-located in the cancer centre. So you share a waiting room, chemo, radiation, gym. And you go, when you finish your treatment, you go to the gym and you have your exercise supervised by an exercise physiologist. So that's something that will be, that chemo, radiation to gym will probably be a standard of care in maybe 30 years. Medical, changes to medical systems take time. But it's certainly not a standard of care now. And a lot of places that were planning that rollout of that, chemo, radiation to gym model, a lot of them, it was put on hold due to COVID. But and my oncologist was all over exercise medicine. When the first time we met, she went through, it was an hour and a half appointment. She went through the whole, treatment plan. I was like, I was in shock. She put the Like, what's just happened? It was 2020, man. No lockdown, the whole chaos of America. So she went through the whole chemo radiation, the whole lot. And then towards the end of the appointment, she said, you have to exercise. And she said, I'm actually really sorry. If you were in Western Australia, you would go straight from here to the gym supervised by exercise. But we don't have that here. So I want you to exercise. And she said it gets more medicine into the tumours. You get further, it helps with that. So, so she was very supportive, and all the nurses in the cancer centre were great, and the radiation oncologist was the same, very supportive of exercise. I used to whip out my phone and show them my latest powerlifting video, and they'd ask for it as well. The oncologist would come around and go, all right, show me what you've been doing, and I'd
well, Helen, let me ask you, it's important. It's important, because the mindset before is, you want to rest and not give your body too much stress and whatnot. But now what we're hearing is that exercise can help the treatments along, actually a better outcome. And so listening to you, you're talking about you're doing some powerlifting and things like that. How did you feel during your treatments as you were exercising?
Well, can I just say it is a mindset. It's a mindset. I think I'm a lot more, I don't want to use the word harsh. I'm a little bit more blunt with my patients than perhaps my colleagues are, but you need to have that mindset. Chemo makes you feel like a rubbish. Radiation's not exactly fun either, but you don't wake up in the morning and go, oh, I'm too tired, I don't feel like it, and skip it. And it's the same with exercise. You have to have that medicine. You have to have that mindset that it is a medicine, and I don't particularly want to do chemo, but I do it. I don't particularly want to go exercise, but I will do it. The difference is chemo makes you feel blah, and exercise actually makes you feel better. So I think with chemo, there is evidence that people that exercise have less side effects and less fatigue. I was very fatigued, but I think, fatigue is very, very complex. It's not just about the medicine, it's about all the psychosocial stuff going on. And I think because it was in lockdown and the craziness of 2020, probably, that wasn't really good for my mental health. So I was really, really fatigued. And so some days I was resting most of the day, and I'd do my powerlifting workout and go for a walk, and then maybe try to cook dinner. So it was hard. It was really hard. But so was chemo, and so was radiation. But it had huge mental benefits. So just prior to my diagnosis, I'd actually signed up for my first powerlifting competition, but it got cancelled because of lockdown. And then I had my surgery first, so I wasn't allowed to do any lifting, for a few weeks after that. So I went back quite deconditioned when I started my powerlifting. And even though I was going through chemo, I was getting stronger every week. So it was a great mental boost to know, I started off just, deadlifting dumbbells and getting stronger and stronger. And I'd actually decided, the number just popped into my head. I was like, I want to deadlift 80 kilograms at the end of chemo. I think 80 kilograms is about 180 pounds, 190. I think it's about 190 pounds. It wasn't as strong as I had been before, but that number popped into my head. And so sometimes when I didn't want to go power lift, I'd just go 80. So it was really a good mental boost. Yeah, and I did it after 15 rounds of chemo. I managed to pick up, 80 kilos. So that was it was good to see that even though I was going through this awful treatment, that I was getting stronger every week. Yeah.
Well, it's important, Helen. I really want to highlight this, because the listeners are tuning in here. When you get breast surgery, right? As you talked about, you're limited on what you can do and what you can lift. And for how long? So how long did you wait? And then how did you work yourself into that? I think that's an important piece, because right now, it just sounds like, okay, you had surgery and all of a sudden you went right into lifting.
Right.
How did the process work here for those that are listening in?
Okay, so it depends on what procedure you have. So because I had a mastectomy with nil reconstruction, it was a very short recovery time. So number one is you listen to your surgeon's guidelines. So my surgeon said 3 to 4 weeks, and then you can start lifting. I had the full auxiliary clearance as well. So she said 3 to 4 weeks, and of course 3 to 4 weeks meant 3 weeks to me. And then because I'm a physio and also I previously worked as a lymphedema therapist, I know that there is no upper limit to what you can lift. So lifting with lymph nodes surgery is fine as long as you start low, monitor for signs and symptoms, progress slow. And then see a lymphedema therapist if there's any issues. I actually did self-refer to a lymphedema therapist for measurement and monitoring. So because I'm a physio, I've worked in cancer care in hospitals, seeing people straight after their breast surgery. And because I worked as a lymphedema therapist, so initially my first few weeks I was just on my own at home because we were still in lockdown. And luckily I had a home gym. Also, work had been very generous. They'd loaned me some equipment from work because it was shut. So I had this very expensive equipment at home. Yeah, and also the powerlifting gym had loaned equipment out because they're like, well, we're shut. So they basically loaned out all the equipment to all the members. So I had some equipment at home. So I just started with the lightest possible weight available to me, which was 140 kilos, which is maybe 2.5 pounds, 3 pounds. And I just went from there. So, of course, I was doing the exercises that I'd been given in hospital by the physio. I was doing those exercises 4 times a day. And then I started with the weights, and then I just progressed. And then when the gyms reopened, I started seeing my powerlifting coach. So I was lifting weights 4 days a week. It was very expensive, but I considered it a key part of my medical care. I saw my powerlifting coach twice a week during chemo, and then I trained at my local gym twice a week. So I was going to 2 different gyms, and both gyms were incredibly supportive. The members were really supportive. And it was, I put it in my diary the same as I did chemo and radiation.
Yeah.
And the same with my walks. So I needed to engage a lot of support as well from my family and friends. It's funny, because initially I was just posting my powerlifting workouts. I ended up with quite a big powerlifting following. I think they were just using me for inspiration. And then as soon as, So, do you know what was funny? This is like a fangirl moment. I don't know. Do you watch UFC, like MMA at all?
Not much.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just tell you. One of my heroes is Rose Namajunas, and I wrote a comment. I sent her a message, and she started following me and commenting on my posts. And if you're into it, she's very famous. She's a famous American athlete. She's just, she's a champion fighter, and she'd just write, well done or whatever. And I'd be like, Rose Namajunas. And this is when I had like 50 followers on my page. I'd be like, Rose Namajunas just commented. So it was really helped me, keep going. So
absolutely.
And I also, again, I was looking for cancer exercise influencers because it was hard. And I needed somebody ahead of me on the journey to help me through. So the first one I found was, she's from Zambia, and her name on Instagram is, I think, Conquering Cancer in Heels. And I just binge watched, like, she was, I don't know, a year ahead of me. And I just binge watched every video, and she'd write about how she felt awful, but she still had to do it. And I remember I binge watched her channel so much I had my hand went numb from, I'd just be like, oh. And then I found another woman from Atlanta. One day I was just scrolling through and I saw this magnificent woman with her bald head doing some CrossFit stuff. So she, we I think encouraged each other with our exercise during treatment. Yeah. So, but this thing, I don't know whether there's more people posting about it or whether my search strategy has got better. So,
Well, it's
I
important.
don't know.
It's important, Helen, that we really, we tackle this because I think a lot of times, the standard of care, radiation, chemo, immunotherapy, whatever you're having, and exercise is never within that regimen. And so here, when you're talking about lifting and you're already going to be tired because of those other treatments, engaging, okay, exercises in that. What was the benefit to you that you noticed, getting through the treatments? Was it recovery that was happening a lot faster? I mean, what was your benefit?
Well, according to my oncologist, I breezed through treatment. It didn't feel like breeze. Look, we've got evidence showing there's less complications, less hospitalizations, less side effects. My immune function stayed normal the whole way through. It skirted near the line, it did dip, but my immune function was normal throughout it. So I was, my oncologist kept saying, I've been telling everybody about you. Like, this just doesn't happen.
Because that is one of the biggest fears, when you're getting chemo is, oh my goodness, your immune system, you don't want to, be susceptible to any type of,
I'll just tell you. Yeah. Look, it was perfect timing by me of when I had my treatment because Australia our borders were shut for 18 months. It was a really long time. Our borders were shut. That's our international borders, but also our state borders were shut. And our state basically had, no COVID. There'd be, 2 cases of COVID in the whole state. So while everyone else was having rampant COVID, and then everybody was very clean. So it was a time when everybody was, everyone's back to their normal slacking off. But everyone was super clean. Everyone was like washing their hands. They were, wiping down equipment at the gym. So if I had to go through the same thing now that, COVID, it's out and about in our community, I wouldn't go to a gym. I would just work out at home. So, yeah, that's a fair – and it's not even just COVID. It's all the other things, your normal flus and colds and gastroids and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah. I can't remember what the question was. Talking about the exercise. So the benefits for me is I talked about it depended on the day I was having, but I came up with a very unofficial scale of, I've got a dog that I walk, and I'd say, how many bags of dog poop do I feel like today? And so just say before exercise, I feel like 10 bags of dog poop, and then I'd do my exercise, and then I'd only feel like 2 bags of dog poop. So that's, so it made me feel, on my awful days, it made me feel less awful. And on my not so bad days, it definitely gave me a boost, both, energy-wise and mental health-wise. But we talk, you're talking about it's not always spoken about. Well, we'll talk about Australian guidelines and then American guidelines. Australia back in 2018 was the first country to come up with a position statement about exercise, which says that exercise should be embedded as a standard part of cancer care with all members of the health team to promote exercise, and best practice is to refer to a physiotherapist or an exercise physiologist for supervised exercise. And then the guidelines are saying avoid inactivity, try to return to your daily activities as soon as possible, work up to and then maintain aerobic exercise of moderate to vigorous intensity. So 150 minutes per week of moderate or 75 minutes per week of vigorous, and 2 to 3 sessions of resistance training 2 to 3 times per week. So that's in the Australian guidelines. And as I said, my experience was all members of my health team certainly did promote, the exercise medicine. But that's the hospital where I was in. I've got friends who were in a hospital, a couple of miles away. Nobody spoke about it at all. So it's not widespread. But then ASCO, last year came out and said oncology providers should, not maybe, should promote regular aerobic and resistance training during active treatment with curative intent. So it's there in the guidelines. But, I've been working as a health professional for 28 years. And I know it takes time. There's research out there saying that, from a time that, a guideline is released, it takes about 17 years on average for it to be a standard of care. Some things take longer. So it's going to take time. But if you're the one with cancer now, you don't have time. So this is where a lot of people take to social media to find information. And the messages I get from people saying, oh, I didn't know about exercise till I found your page. And I'm like, we've got guidelines and we've got the research saying it's as important as your chemo radiation, etc. So
this is important, Helen, right? I mean, these types of conversations are extremely important.
Yeah.
Because so many people are being diagnosed today. And because of that, exercise is not necessarily in the forefront of one of the things you need to get.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, right, depending on your diagnosis, right, that you're going to be prescribed chemo, radiation, surgery, or something to that effect. But to say, hey, exercise is something that needs to be prescribed as well is not necessarily there. So you speaking on this is very important. And to hear how you felt. Yeah, you had actually bad days, like as everyone would have bad days having chemo or radiation, feeling fatigue or whatnot. But that didn't prevent you from exercising is what I'm listening to. Yeah. And overall, you're saying that your oncologist talked about your recovery, right?
Oh, you're frozen. Yeah.
And so then your oncologist talked about your recovery and how well you were doing. Is that correct?
Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah. I became her poster girl. I did get shingles in there. I managed to get like shingles. But
what else, right? What else could happen here?
Yeah. But yes. So yeah, and then I'll just paraphrase the quote. I won't get it exactly right, but Professor Prue Cormie is this amazing exercise physiologist and cancer exercise researcher from Australia. And again, I think it was back in 2017, 2018, she said, if exercise was a pill, every oncologist would prescribe it, every cancer patient would demand it, and governments would subsidise it because of the benefits of exercise. So, yeah. And again, that's just the mindset. Because I'm telling you, it's hard. It's not like I felt absolutely fantastic and skipped through treatment. I felt really awful. I kept a journal, and at one point, at the back of it, I listed every side effect that I'd had. It was like, it's good. I'd forgotten about it. I was looking back through my journal, and it took up the whole page. I'd forgotten that I lost some, I had chemo nails, I had nausea, I had reflux, this very long list. And it was hard. And I would say it's probably the hardest thing apart from chemo and all that, exercising during it was the hardest thing that I have done. It was really, really hard. But I think because I was a health professional, with lots of knowledge about all the guidelines and the research and a supportive oncology team, I just knew that I had to do it. It was non-negotiable. Yeah, it was a non-negotiable with myself. So, yeah.
I love that. I love that about you. You've taken that piece, exercise, into your own hands. And not just blindly, right? Like you talked about, there's guidelines and things like that about it. And so it's nice to see, and it's nice for those that are listening in to hear this, to say, hey, you know what? Some type of resistance training or aerobic type training, start there. It doesn't have to be something that's extremely major. We're talking about 2.5 pounds is some of the things that you kind of started with, and then you progressed. but knowing that the overall benefit is going to be the best outcome for you.
Yep.
Something why you might want to have that in your regimen, and make sure you speak to your physician about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk to your physician, and the best is if get a referral to someone, either a fitness professional, physical therapist, exercise physiologist, who can help you with exercise. So, there are people. We talk about self-efficacy of exercise. Whether you know what you're doing, you're confident to do it. So, since I finished my treatment, I've met all these people who before their treatment were hiking, powerlifting, crossfitting, and they have just kept it up, during their treatment on their own without support from their oncology team, because they've gone and done their reading. And I think they are far, far more inspirational than anything that I did, because they've done it without support. I had support of my oncology team and my powerlifting coach, and these people are doing it, on their own. I'm like, well, they inspire me, because I still have days where I don't want to exercise. Talking about motivation as well, as a rule, when you're diagnosed with cancer, you want to live. So staying alive is a very powerful motivator. And I watched this documentary that was released back in 2016, ABC Catalyst. So it's an Australian documentary. And in it, they talked about a mouse study. And I know we're not mice, but anyway, they talked about this mouse study, and the mice had cancer, and they were randomized into two groups. One group could run around on the exercise wheel whenever they wanted to, and the other group was sedentary. And I think it was after about 8 weeks, they then dissected the mice and had a look at the tumours. And the mice with who'd exercised, their tumours were at least 60% smaller. Now, that statistic, I think, it's an impressive statistic. But when you're looking at the photo of the sick mice, like, that was very motivating to me. Even though I'm a health professional, I know we're not mice. But looking at that, when I really didn't feel like it, it's like, I know it's going to help my fatigue and going to help me feel better, whatever. But it's like, oh, it might help me not be dead. Yes, I'm known to get up and go. So that, was a powerful motivator. That's an area of research that's still happening in humans. But there are, I know of one small trial in esophageal cancer patients where they had neoadjuvant chemo, so the chemo before their surgery, the exercise group versus the non-exercise group. And the group that exercised had greater shrinkage of their tumours. So, yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. And so, I tell you what, Helen, we're listening to you here, and we're talking about exercise and the benefits of that.
Mm.
How did your family, let's talk about the support, of your family and friends, because I heard you say, hey, I took to social media and that helped me. But how did the support in your family and friends at a time like this benefit you?
For a start, you've got to find the right person to give you the support. So before I started my chemo, I did say to my family, I have to exercise. You have to, I'll keep my powerlifting up. You have to make me go for a walk every day. And I do two walks a day, short walk in the morning, half an hour in the morning, half an hour in the evening. And I said, but you have to make me go. It doesn't matter how much I'm whinging and complaining. You have to make me go. And my husband said, well, that sounds silly. You should just rest. I'm like, okay, you're sacked. But then my eldest, I've got 3 sons. My eldest son, he was about 21 at the time. He said, I'll do that, Mum. And so I was like, okay, the morning walk I could get motivated. But the afternoon ones, he'd be like, right, got to go, Mum. Because it was lockdown. He was working from home. So he would drag me. He'd, force me out the door. And I always felt better after about 5 minutes. Yeah. And he'd walk behind me yelling out David Goggins quotes. I don't know if you're a David Goggins fan. He's a military guy. I love him. I saw him live this year. Yeah. So, I mean, my husband, he supported me in theory, like, yeah, you go do what you've got to do. But he was concerned, saying, oh, you've got to rest. But I was like, no, I have to do this. So he was happy for me to go and do what I needed to do, but he didn't want to drag me out the door. That was, not what he wanted to do. And that was fine. And then a lot of my friends are health professionals. So while we were in lockdown in that early phase, one of my friends said, right, here's the home gym equipment I've got. We're going to meet on Zoom every week on Saturday, and you're going to write the program and we'll exercise together. So because she knew I needed some meaning and purpose. So that was really good. And again, on those days, I'd wake up and I would just feel really bad. But because I knew I was meeting my friend on Zoom, I'd go and, put some makeup on and get dressed. And we'd had the routine. It would be like we'd set the timer, 15 minutes of just gossip. What have you been up to this week? Then the exercise program, and then another few minutes of chat, and then we would go. So that was crucial support during lockdown, because my mood was quite low with lockdown, job loss, and cancer as a delightful trio of yeah. So that was important. And then again, friends, we would meet, but it wouldn't just be meeting at the coffee shop. It would be, we'll go for a hike first. And then depending on, will it be a short walk or a longer walk, depending on how I was feeling. Yeah. Again, with the context that the borders were shut, everybody was very clean and there was no COVID in the community. So,
sure.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't do that today. Probably I'd go for a walk with them, but not go to the coffee shop. Yeah. Yeah.
So it really was an important factor to be able to have these things implemented into your routine. One, your son came in and he was there for you and supported you. You had a friend on the Zoom. So for those that are listening in, we always talk about getting the right support or finding your support team and how important that is. It's just as important as almost the treatment, right? As for the mental health aspect of it is what we're listening to Helen speak about. So Ellen, that's it's nice that you shared that with us. Walk us through a little bit of the Helen before she was treated or diagnosed with cancer compared to the Helen that's in front of us today.
Okay. Well, life was good. And I knew life was good. I'd been working in palliative care. I've worked in rehab where people going about their life were hit with the truck and their life changed forever. So I think I had a pretty good appreciation of life. At that stage, 2 of my children were adults and one was nearing the end of his school. Strong marriage. Yeah, life was ticking along well. And then got diagnosed, and then afterwards, life is good. Life is good. I don't think I'm anyone who particularly thinks that cancer has dramatically changed me. I think I had a pretty good understanding of the preciousness of life. I think what I've learned, I'm probably more assertive now. I just don't have the energy to put up with nonsense anymore. I'm a little, a bit of a people pleaser personality, but that bit of me has been molded. I think I'm definitely better at my job now. I think from the outside looking in, I could see people going through really difficult things or difficult times and not understand how they could do it. And I think I'm definitely better at my job. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't think I have. I'm not. Yeah, I don't have anything particularly inspirational. So, cancer's a pile of poo.
No, I don't know if it's inspirational versus just your perspective.
Yeah.
And so you really touched on it right now, right? I mean, understanding how people go through life and struggle. Now you look at that differently now because now you've gone through something like that and understand there's a struggle behind it.
Yeah, and I think I have a greater understanding of all those psychosocial issues. I don't think I really understand. Well, I'd never heard of terminology like ghosting, toxic positivity, cancer muggles, grief tourism. I'd had patients tell me stories, and now I can go, that's grief tourism. Oh, that's ghosting. And I know my patients really appreciate that when I speak to them about that. So what happened with me, I had my cancer treatment it was about a mile, up just under 2 kilometres from where I work in the cancer centre. So I saw quite a few of my patients there. So, of course, word spread. We've got people that attend our exercise classes, and they've been coming, 2-3 times a week for 5 years. And we've got maybe 900 regular attendees at our clinic. So, of course, when I came back to work, everybody knew that I'd had cancer. I mean, my hair was like this short. So what happened was all these people that I didn't realise that they had a cancer history, because, in the exercise class, we haven't necessarily done you might have 15, 20 people in there, and you didn't do their initial assessment. So you don't know that they've got a cancer history. So suddenly all the cancer survivors came out of the woodwork to come, and I almost became like their therapist. They'd come and tell me, their stories. All the cancer patients, who were going through their treatment would come and they'd share with me things that they would not have shared with me before. I was a health professional, but now I was one of them. I was part of their community. So they'd come and tell me things. And, I remember one woman, she's about 60, saying, my best friend of 45 years, she hasn't contacted me. Like she didn't contact me at all during the entire treatment. And then the one time she did contact me, she told me that I should be grateful because I was 60 and I wasn't a 20-year-old, and at least I had children. I'm like, okay, so that's got a name. That's called ghosting. And then it's also called toxic positivity. And she's like, well, yeah, I'm glad that I got it at 60 and not at 20. And I really feel for these young 20-year-olds. I'm like, yeah, but you're still allowed to say that this was really awful. You don't have to say, yeah, you can say, yeah, it's better now than at 20. So you've just been subject to ghosting and toxic positivity. It's got a name. And so then she was like, it's got a name? I'm like, yeah, it's really common. That's why it's got a nickname. Have you heard cancer muggle? She's like, no, what's that? I'm like, well, the Urban Dictionary definition is people who think they know, about cancer, but they don't. It's got some swear words in there. Yeah. And so then she felt better. She felt better knowing that it's a terminology. So that's come out when people started, saying things. I'll show people memes. I'll pick my person because, you probably know Cancer Patient. Do you know the Cancer Patient on Instagram? Yeah, the OG. Yeah, and now there's lots of great meme pages. But I'll just pull out memes. I've screenshotted my favourite. And, you've pulled, yeah. I mean, some of them are a bit risque, so I'll just pick my person and I'll show them the memes and they will just fall about laughing. Yeah, and then I'll show my colleagues and they'll go, oh, you can't joke about that. That's not funny. And I go, that's hilarious. So, yeah. So I think, and I found that mutually therapeutic, even though I was listening to them. And I can't talk about myself in that context of being the health profession. But, them sharing their stories, I find therapeutic, and then being able to tell them about these memes and that these things have got names makes them feel better because it's human nature. And look, it's across any, I think, trauma or tragedy that humans are generally not very good. Well, not all humans, maybe Westerners are not very good at coping with it. So I did read a lot of, inspirational books, not by cancer survivors, but just inspirational people, during my treatment, which helped. And one of them, Turia Pitt, is, very, very famous Australian who I can't remember. I think it was Burns. She was doing this like ultra outback running race, and a running race that should have been cancelled. And then the fires came through, and she had burns to something dripping like 80% of her body. Lost most of her fingers, and yet she's come back and she got back and did triathlons. So it's very, very inspirational. But in it, I'm reading it. I'm going, she got ghosted. Like she's reading about, and that was a burn. That wasn't cancer, that was burns. And then everything and I'm like, it's the same thing. The grief tourism, the ghosting, the toxic positivity, all that, came through in her story. And then, in rehab as well, with people that have had, spinal cord injuries or, whatever, people are rehab. It's that same theme that I think, humans aren't necessarily good at dealing with tragedy or trauma. They don't know what to do or say. So, yeah.
It's very common. It's difficult for a lot of people to try to, what do I say? I don't know how to deal with this. And we see it a lot, right, Helen?
Yeah.
But what I do love about you is that you have found a way to maintain who you are, but you've also taken control of your life also and your treatments. And I say that because now you're on your way to go on a trip, right? And so talk to me a little bit about that. So what are you're going for? How long? You're under treatment, but you're going away.
Yeah. So when I was going through treatment, I wrote a bucket list of everything I wanted to do. So I've been slowly working through it. But one of the things that kept coming up was I want to go to the outback. I grew up in an outback city. So I wanted to go to the outback. I wanted to see the stars. There's nothing like the stars in the outback because there's no light pollution. They're just, out of this world. So I just pictured myself, lying down, looking at the stars in the outback. I wanted to do a road trip. So I'm just about to drive to Perth, which is on the other side of the country, to visit a very dear friend. So it's about 4,600 kilometres each way, which is about 2,500 miles each way. It's a 50-hour drive, 100-hour round trip.
Yep.
So I'm doing it on my own. I've just come back. My husband and I had a lovely road trip, which was lovely. And, we did lots of hiking or bushwalking. Yeah, so I'm taking off and, I'm leaving in a couple of days. So I'm really excited about that. I will keep filming content. I've actually found, I guess one of the things that I have found that is a hobby is making reels, making videos, running around the bush doing silly things. So I think they call it the Australian irreverent humour. So I'll make some content. I've got ideas that pop into my head, so I'll keep making content, but I'll probably be uncontactable for a lot of the time because out in the outback, there's often no phone coverage. But I'm looking, I'm really looking forward to driving across an Nullarbor Plain. They've got this one stretch, Australia's straightest road. It's 100 miles. That's dead straight. And I'm like, well, now if the wheel alignment on the car is good, and I set the cruise control, can I have on that? But
you know what?
So to prepare, I've been watching the Wolf Creek movies. I don't know if you've ever seen Wolf Creek movies.
No.
They're horror movies based on a serial. It's based on a very, very, very loosely on an actual serial killer. That so it's just a serial killer, terrorizing and murdering people in the outback.
Oh my goodness! My goodness!
Which is not the normal way to prepare for a road trip, but
I'd tell you, such the comedian.
So I'm looking forward to that. So there's parts where I need to have everything like my own water, my own toilet, my own fuel. There's parts where there's nothing. Yeah. Yep.
What do these trips do for you? Helen, what is there something that these trips do for you?
I think I spoke about as well that I did a road trip between chemo and radiation with my son at the time, who was 16, and his best friend came as well on this road trip. I don't know. Maybe because I grew up in the bush. I grew up in the outback. At one point in school, I had a very terrible history teacher who just read from the textbook. So I used to skip school and go play in the bush. I never got caught. Yeah, I think I just like being in the bush, and I like bushwalking, especially on challenging trails. I'm not very good at meditating or relaxing. I find it not relaxing at all. I'm a terrible, I've tried, I've done everything. I'm not that good. But when you're walking up or down a very steep trail, all you can think about is where your feet are going so that you don't fall over. So you have to have mindfulness. Like I try to practice mindfulness. I'm not particularly good at it, except you're forced to when you're going up and down steep. So it's like a moving meditation. It's mindfulness. I love birds, and it's something as a kid I had pet budgies or budgerigars, and I had other birds, and I'd kind of forgotten my love of birds. And then there's a big influencer called No Grief Drew Salau. She loves birds, and she's in New York, and I'm pretty sure she's got an Australian bird as a pet. I think she might have a cockatiel. I'm not 100% accurate. But because she loves birds so much, that helped me with my mindfulness. So I think she's obsessed with birds, and I think she's pretty obsessed with Australian birds. So now when I go for walks, and again in the bush, I'm looking out and I'm trying to take photos. That I now sometimes stop and will just look, when there's a couple of hundred cockatoos crawling around on a grassy area, I'll just stop and look and, take some video footage. I just find it very relaxing. So, and the same with, seeing wallabies hop around is pretty special, even though I'm Australian and you see them all the time. It's still, I don't know. I just love the outback. I won't be moving it there anytime soon. So it's just, getting out. I'm quite an introvert, so being away from people as well. Like, my job, I'll often talk to 100 people a day at work across the exercise classes, and I love my job. But one of my colleagues describes it brilliantly. He says you get social fatigue. Even if you're quite an extroverted person, you do get social fatigue talking to people all day. And, so I think it's just good to get away and recharge. Yeah.
Recharge. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Helen, I appreciate you so much for coming on here at All Talk Oncology and telling your story. And it's been such an empowerment for those that are going to be listening in, because we understand the power of exercise when it comes to treatment. And we understand the things that you have utilized, to help you along the way. And so we hope that helps the next person on their journey. And so thank you so much for coming on here on All Talk Oncology. But before we let you go here, what would you like to say? Anything to the listeners? Or what would you like to say anything to the listeners who may be listening in, or maybe giving them something?
Exercise is cancer medicine. You need that mindset. And if you're struggling, go get a referral. Yeah. Get a referral to a fitness professional, physical therapist, physio, exercise physiologist to help you on your way. And it's hard. Give yourself a pat on the back for anything you do. So if you're having a bad day and all you can manage is to walk to the mailbox and back, well done. You've done a great job. And even short bursts of exercise are helpful and beneficial. avoid an all or nothing mindset. Just do what you can manage. Give yourself a pat on the back. And for those that are exercising and, post their videos, you're so inspiring. You never know who you can help. So if you've got a public page and you're happy to do it, post them because you'll be helping the next person.
Thank you so much, Helen.
Okay, thank you, Kitty.
Helen Beeley here on our show here. Thank you so much for joining us here at All Talk Oncology. And as I say to all our guests every single time, you're not alone in this. We're in this together. This is Kenny Perkins, AKA your cancer guy. Until again, I'm out.
So stay connected with us on All Talk Oncology Cancer Podcast. Make sure you subscribe to that, right? Wherever you listen to your podcast, whether that's Apple, Spotify, make sure you subscribe and continue to spread that word, right? Engage in this because your engagement can help someone stay alive. And this is what we're talking about. So again, make sure you subscribe, hit that subscribe button. Again, this is Kenny Perkins, aka your cancer guy. Until again, I'm out.